When I step on the podium, I think the only thing that I'm really thinking about is sound. Particularly the first sound, because the very first chord or the very first sound that you produce sets the tone for the rest of it. It has a very spiritual experience when you conduct and all that music comes out. And you have actually, when you're standing right in front of the orchestra, that sound is amazing.
Maestro Eckart Preu has served as music director of the Spokane Symphony since 2004. He is now in his final season.
Right now I'm really just focused on the new season and making it a great, musically satisfying season.
Music has always been a central part of Eckart's life, and it's brought him on a long and winding road from his childhood in communist East Germany to Spokane.
I think that when you grow up in a society where you are always aware of the restraints that you have to operate in, even as a child, it shapes your life in very different ways.
Eckart was born in 1969. His father was a musician who inspired Eckart to pursue music.
It was not so much a decision as just a very organic flow.
When Eckart was 10 years old, he and his brother were enrolled in boarding school at the Dresden Boys Choir, one of the world's oldest and most famous choirs of its kind.
And pretty much all we did all day long was singing and soccer. I had two choices. Either I became a soccer player or I do something with music. And when you do music in boys choir, there was basically either you became a singer or you became a conductor. And my brother was already a conductor, he's 5 years older, so it came very natural to me to just follow in his footsteps as a little brother who admired his big brother. The Dresden Boys Choir consisted of 140 boys, and we were allowed to travel to West Germany, to Finland, to Spain, to Italy, to all these countries that East Germans were not allowed to travel. So that was quite a privilege.
At the boys' choir, Eckart became a soloist, rehearsal pianist, and assistant conductor. Later, in 1989, the Berlin Wall came down and Eckart's world began to open up.
After the wall came down, my first thought was, how can I get out of here? Since I had been traveling before to Western countries, I had caught like the bug, and I wanted to get out, and I wanted to see the world. I thought, okay, the only way I can make this happen is if I study abroad. And so when I started studying conducting, I was always on the lookout for scholarships that would allow me to study abroad, because I didn't have the money. I tracked down a scholarship to go to France for 2 years, and then I applied for a scholarship to come to the United States for a year.
During those years, Eckart became principal conductor for the New Amsterdam Symphony Orchestra in New York, as well as associate conductor for the Richmond Symphony in Virginia.
And so 3 years into my tenure as associate conductor in Richmond, I applied for several positions in Stamford, Connecticut, and also here in Spokane. And then I became music director here. I didn't really know where Spokane was at the time. I was looking at the map and said, oh my God, it's all the way up there on the far left corner. And I just knew it was cold. And then when I was here for the first time conducting the orchestra, I felt incredibly welcome. I felt that musicians were very warm. It was a very good organization, very, very positive. And I found that everybody in the community that I encountered was very, very, very friendly. And it's beautiful. My experience in Spokane with the orchestra, but in Spokane in general, is that if you make a case for something may it be weird or funky or interesting or new, had never been done before, people will follow, because Spokane is a very open community and is always ready for a new adventure.
I'm never going to get this opportunity again, so I'm just going to do it. So just smile. You did good. You did good. Hold on, the other way, the other way.
Eckart has led the symphony through some new adventures and some of its most historic moments, including the opening of its current home, the Martin Woldson Theater at the Fox.
The opening of the Fox Theater, I think that was a game changer for the orchestra, musically, and I think also for the community, for downtown Spokane. It was actually my predecessor, Fabio Michetti, who said that, a concert hall is an instrument. And that is so true. And I think that instrument really changed the way we play music in Spokane. I can feel, as a conductor, in my back, the energy that's coming from the audience. I know what they're thinking. I know when they're bored. I know when they're sleeping, but I also know when they're excited about it. And I think when you connect with the audience, and that's kind of, it may sound funky, but I'm German, so I mean it. It's this energy exchange that you put out as an orchestra when you have 100 people on stage and they play their hearts out. The audience will feel that, and they will receive that, and then when they're engaged, they give it back.
Spokane is also the place where Eckart would meet Neely, his bride-to-be. Together, they're raising 2 daughters.
When I was introduced as music director here in Spokane, the symphony put up billboards all over town, these big highway billboards, and with my face on it. And the story goes that Neely saw those billboards with my face and said, "I'm going to marry that guy." And the rest is history. I always wanted to have more time for my family. As a musician, you identify yourself very strongly with your work, because that's what I've been doing since I was 4 or 3 or so. I've been doing music, so that's a very important part of me. But family is basically my anchor. And so what that does is it makes you and all parents will agree, a super efficient person, because you need to be. And so 10 years ago or so, I would have had hours and hours of work and days I would have spent on a certain score. Now I can do it in a couple hours with almost more depth because you just get so efficient. And your brain, I think, is also dialed a little bit on a different level, your memory and your creativity also. It's like it's like on overdrive, on creative overdrive in many ways. So you don't develop concepts very slowly, but you're just like this. And I enjoy that. It's kind of, yes, I can do this,
It's a good thing that Eckart enjoys being on overdrive. He's already been splitting his conducting time between Spokane, Long Beach, California, and Cincinnati. After this season, he'll turn in his baton in Spokane to become music director for the Portland Symphony Orchestra in Maine.
And if the first 2 are kind of up-bowish, so brrr, boom. Second time also brrr, boom. And the third time is brrr, boom. So I've been music director here for 14 years. And I think the average tenure of a music director with an orchestra is 6.
Even so, Eckart still considers Spokane to be his home base.
And for the foreseeable future, it might as well stay that way. My family is very happy here. I'm very happy here. It's a beautiful community. So unless there's a real reason to move, I won't move. I'm honored and humbled about being given a star. I've given 15 years of my life to this organization. And I think what that star symbolizes for me personally is that even though I'm leaving the Spokane Symphony, I'll be always right there. Thank you. I'm not really thinking about goodbyes yet, because I think that might just affect me in weird ways. I think, I want to have a good time. I want everyone else to have a good time. I know that I had a really good run. and that I had a great time here. Everything I know now as a music director, I learned here. And that's 2 measures before the woodwinds have tom tom bum 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 bum. Yeah, you'll find your way back in. What keeps me in music is the search for something that I will never reach. That's the one. Yeah, thank you. Every time you look at a piece, it's a new piece. And every time you look at a piece, you dig a little deeper. It's like this eternal tunnel, and you dig and you dig and you dig. No matter how long and how often you perform a piece, you find new things, and you may actually change your entire opinion about a piece. Like this 3rd or 4th or 10th time you do it, and said, "I've always done it wrong. Now I do it this way." Music is such a thing that is so alive, and every time you do it, it's different. And if you do this exact same piece with the same orchestra, it's already different. But when you do the same piece with a different orchestra, it becomes a whole different piece. And I like that. I like that part.